in Washington for more on this. Paddy, we're expecting Hillary Clinton to speak. And so far, you and I have talked about this before, the comments that we've had from the White House and from the State Department, many have thought have been less than robust. Are we expecting it to get any different?
We do expect to have a little bit tougher language, and we expect to hear from the president himself. We're told President Obama is going to meet with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in just a few hours here at the White House. After that, he may come out and speak to the cameras, or it could wait until Thursday. White House saying it's simply just an issue of scheduling to determine whether or not he speaks today or tomorrow. Behind the scenes, officials in Washington have been floating this idea that they haven't wanted to push Colonel Gaddafi too hard because they were afraid of what would happen to the American citizens still in Libya. There's at least 30 diplomats and their family members that they've been trying to evacuate. They weren't allowed to fly in charters, we're told, yesterday, and today they have a ferry. Last we were told that they were getting ready to push off. Now, does that have something to do with the timing? Was the Obama administration really waiting till its Americans were safely away before speaking? They're really not answering that question here. They are facing some critics, though, who say there are other countries that have diplomats and citizens in Libya, and they've still managed to come out fairly strongly against Gaddafi. They, though, aren't responding to those allegations here at the White House.
Do we have any idea what possible combination of factors, of policies they might consider in trying to force Gaddafi to stop what he's been doing?
Well, the White House says they are looking at all appropriate action. So what does that mean? Well, of course, everyone is loath to get out in front of the president. They like him to make the announcements himself when he does eventually come out to speak. One of the things they say they are looking at is sanctions. Obviously, we saw from Senator John Kerry yesterday, he was pushing very hard for not only U.S. but UN sanctions, stopping the flow of oil, therefore stopping the flow of money into the Gaddafi government. One of the other things they could start talking about is having all of these military leaders who still back Gaddafi. They could be facing war crimes trials. That's one of the threats they could put out there. They could talk about freezing his assets. As for the no-fly zone, as you know, this has been talked a lot. There have been a lot of people advocating for the U.S. to institute a no-fly zone. Militarily, it wouldn't be all that difficult for the U.S. to do. I'm told they have assets in the region. Obviously, there's an air base in Italy. It wouldn't be all that difficult. But the State Department is really pushing back on the thought that that's around the corner, saying that it would be exceedingly difficult in dealing with the international community to get a no-fly zone up.
All right, Paddy, for the moment, thanks very much indeed. While we wait for Hillary Clinton to speak, let's get a word from a U.S. politician. Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff is on the House Select Committee on Intelligence and also overseas foreign aid. He joins us live from Burbank in California. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Schiff. What is your assessment of how the White House and the State Department have handled this Libya situation thus far?
What an interesting field here.
Well, I would like to see them, as I urged with Egypt, be very forward-leaning and make it abundantly clear that we stand with the Libyan people, that this kind of violence being used on peaceful protesters is appalling and absolutely unacceptable. I think we should join with the international community and urge, frankly, if they're going to be using jets to bomb their own people, that any Libyan pilots would be welcome to defect with their aircraft or otherwise. But we ought to unmistakably let the Libyan people know that we stand with them.
So you think that
we are in solidarity with their democratic aspirations?
You think the message that's been coming out of the U.S. thus far hasn't been strong enough?
We'll see what the Secretary and President have to say today. I think their language is going to be even stronger. But events, I think, in the region have been moving more quickly than the administration. And this is, from my point of view, a once-in-a-generational moment where the people in this region that are aspiring for democracy are going to be looking to see what our reaction is. We want to be on the right side of history. We want to be with them in their hour of need and their hour of aspiration for democracy.
Well, how can you do that?
I want to make sure our administration and our Congress speak unequivocally. Well, by being quite forward-leaning, both in our statements and what we're willing to do to make it clear to Gaddafi that we won't stand for this kind of violence, that we're ready to work with the international community on sanctions, that we're ready to, frankly, even escalate beyond that if he continues to use major military assets against his own people. I think these are the ways that we can show our solidarity with the Libyan people and with the people in Egypt and Tunisia and elsewhere.
I mean, it's a fine line,
There's
isn't it?
also going to be a very tough period ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I mean, it's a fine
Yes.
line, isn't it? Because
Well,
you know,
it is.
Gaddafi has already played the old colonialism card and played the oil card. I mean, the U.S. involvement in any of these countries always brings up the accusations of interference, of economic. I beg your pardon, Mr. Schiff. I do beg your pardon. Can we just put this on hold for a moment, because we want to get
Yes.
over to Hillary Clinton, who's about to speak. Let's hear what she has to say.
And a colleague and someone very familiar here in Washington, back to the State Department in his new capacity as foreign minister. Antonio, it's always a pleasure to see you, and thank you for being here so that we could have a very broad-ranging discussion and particularly prepare for President Obama's upcoming visit to Brazil. I was very privileged to attend the inauguration of President Rousseff, and the wonderful potential of everything that we're working on holds great promise for broadening and deepening our already strong partnership. This will be President Obama's first presidential visit to South America. It comes at a time when we are cooperating closely and our bilateral work on issues and global challenges, including food security and human rights.
All right, we're going to cut away from Hillary Clinton at this point, because clearly she's continuing with the agenda at State Department, which doesn't involve commenting on Libya at this particular moment. We'll return to Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff, who's on the House Select Committee on Intelligence. He's live in Burbank, California. Thank you for your patience, Mr. Schiff. We wanted to see if Hillary Clinton would address the issue. She may well yet, but she's clearly just carrying on with her already established agenda. Are you disappointed that she hasn't taken this opportunity to make some kind of comment?
Well, you know, let's give her a chance to. I'd be very surprised if she doesn't take the opportunity at some point today to comment on the appalling violence in Libya. But you mentioned before we broke away the fine line that we have to walk in terms of the ability for the Libyan regime to cast this as a struggle against continuing colonial efforts. And it's true. You know, I think it highlights the importance of us working together with the international community. And there has been great, I think, international cooperation condemning what's happening in terms of the violence against peaceful protesters. So it's important that we coordinate our efforts, but it's also important that we make it clear to the Libyan people that we are not putting our interest in oil resources above their interest in controlling their own destiny and their desire to have a government that's reflective of their own people. And plainly, when you have a leader who's willing to use violence against his own people, who's willing to destroy his own infrastructure, he cares about nothing other than the perpetuation of his power.
I mean, I understand your need and your desire to be diplomatic in this context, and Hillary Clinton herself has probably been diplomatic and waiting for the president to make comment first. But you do understand that in this part of the world, a lot of people are suggesting that President Obama has been behind the curve, not only on Libya, but on Egypt and Tunisia too, only really making the kind of strong comments that you're talking about after the events have really played themselves out. And people are pointing out that President Obama was perfectly willing to come down